Good day, everyone. Welcome to our second video lecture. And this video lecture, we are going to focus now on lesson one, which is communication. And last meeting or last video lecture, it was a generic discussion about 21st century skills and what are the skills, to be specific, the 21st century skills that we have to be mindful about. And these are the 21st century skills that, of course, we need to be equipped or we need to possess. And at this point, we will be focusing on the communication skills. And I believe you guys are ready to listen or to learn more about communication skills. So let's start. This time, allow me to share my screen to everybody. Here it is. So communication, it's one of the things that really is very important. It's very important because it is the key for us to be able to understand each other. And as 21st century learners, of course, you need to possess communication skills, because obviously communication skills is one of the skills which is considered as 21st century skill. So this time, let us take a look at the speech of Dr. Laura Jana to kick off our discussion on communication skills, or the different 21st century skills that 21st century students really basically need in order to succeed. So let's try to take a look at this speech of hers delivered through TED Talk or on TED Talk, and let's try to take a look at also later on the things that we learned from her speech or from her. And I would like you also to observe on how she delivers and how she just cascade her message to her listeners. So let's try to take a look at it or check it out.
Around the world, everyone from governments and business leaders and economists to parents, teachers, and pediatricians are all asking the same question. What skills will our children need to succeed?
So obviously, what skills do children need? Of course, the 21st century skills, especially we are now in a world where just really demands so many things, because if we are going to compare it to the way the world was before was a bit laid back, but now we really have to make sure we can compete, or we can possess, or we will have the skills in order for us to survive, and at the same time to have a purpose-driven life in a way. So what are the different skills that children now need to succeed? And according to Dr. Jana, of course, these are the questions posed not only by pediatricians, not only by, but basically almost all people coming from different sectors.
Now, you may think you know the answer to the question, but consider this. It has been estimated that 2/3 of children today will work in jobs that don't currently exist. Now, what skills do you want them to have? In 2016, the World Economic Forum released a list that every parent, and quite honestly, anyone who cares about our children's future, needs. It's a list of the 21st century skills most valued in today's complex, globalized, and rapidly changing world. 1/3 of these skills are the traditional hard skills, the reading, writing, and arithmetic that I call IQ skills. More notable, however, are the other skills, social and creative skills like creativity, curiosity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, along with grit, leadership, and adaptability. It is these so-called soft, non-cognitive, and other skills that are gaining prominence in playrooms, classrooms, and boardrooms around the world. Now, I feel the need to point out that calling these skills soft doesn't do them justice, and referring to them as non-cognitive is just wrong, given that they involve complex functioning of the brain. That leaves us with other. And as somebody who's spent decades translating facts and figures into practical information, I can assure you that if you ever want to convince somebody that something's really important, don't call it other.
Okay, so in this first part of her speech, of course, she mentioned about the world that is rapidly changing, fast changing, and obviously we need to possess 21st century skills, and at the same time the soft skills as well, because humans as we are, we definitely need to have a skill where it would be easier, or a skill where um we don't just consider ourselves to be the person living, but basically class. Of course there are other people around, so that's why apart from the 21st century skills, because the 21st century skills, it already talks or it encompasses so many skills, soft skills included. So let's try to continue her speech.
Around the world. So I'd like to propose that we call these other skills key skills.
So she wanted to add and propose because it's already given. We already identified the 21st century skills. So Dr. Laura Jana proposed the key skills. It's actually spelled like that, the Q and the I, but it's pronounced like the key, the Yahweh. Okay, so key skills. And let's try to listen. What are the key skills? Okay, what are the things she refers as the key skills?
QI. Now, the fact that it sounds like the word key, as in K-E-Y, fits because these skills are certainly key to future success. It also reflects the fact that they are the complement to the IQ skills, IQ and QI. And finally, the word key, sometimes also pronounced chi, has been used across cultures and centuries to represent a positive life force that you can...
Okay, key skills in other cultures, according to her, is also pronounced as she, and it symbolizes like positive. Okay, and these are the things that basically we are gonna look forward, or we could be able to extract from the kind of skills that Dr. Jana wanted to propose. So let's continue.
Be born with, but they can also be developed. And that brings us to perhaps the most important insight. Based on the science of early brain and child development, we now know that these key skills can be developed far earlier than most people realize. With 85% of brain growth thought to occur by age 3 and up to 1 million new neural connections forming per second, it is during the first 5 years that we have a unique opportunity to more intentionally build babies' brains and to assemble this toolkit of skills we know they'll need to succeed. Now, to help you better understand why these early years are so critical, I find it helpful to use the analogy of comparing the electrical wiring of the brain to that of a house. It is entirely possible to rewire an old house. It just always takes longer, costs more, and never turns out quite as good as when the wiring goes in before the walls go up. With respect to the wiring of babies' brains, caring, responsive adults play the role as chief architects. Neurons don't just connect, and babies don't just learn what they need to know all on their own. Unlocking children's early learning.
So the adults, we basically play the role of she architect. So we have to develop the children when they are still young, because according to Dr. Jana, which is very good analogy, she creates an analogy with the way the human brain works, like to the wiring of the house, that if we are going to build a house and it's a bit old, we can do rewiring, but it takes a longer process though. And like if we already create a very good wiring or a foundation in terms of wiring, we do it before the walls are in, or before the house is completed, and before everything is just there and it is used, then it would be so much better. And I believe it's similar to how we have to mold our children or the kids.
Potential is deeply dependent on social interactions, which explains why cultivating the key skills involves a whole lot of talking, cooing, singing, playing, and reading books to babies. With that,
and to develop the key skills, it involves a lot of activities that adults would do with the children. For example, talking to them, conversing to the children, even reading books, playing. It's like we develop the social skills of these children.
in mind, allow me to introduce you to the 7 key skills.
So Dr. Laura is proposing the 7 key skills, and I believe we have to really see what are these 7 key skills.
The first of the key skills are me skills, defined by self-awareness, self-control, or impulse control, along with focus and attention.
Okay, very good, right? Me skills, it's defined by being self-aware, like self-awareness, self-control, basically self-discipline, which is, I believe, is very difficult in a way, especially because it is something that we are going to develop through time. And humans as we are, we really tend to be, how do I call this? But we tend to be selfish at times, that we just wanted what we want, things to be done the way things are. We just want it to be like that. And on the other hand, if we consider like what we really want, most of the time, it's when we kind of lost our self-control in a way, because it's something that, you know, whatever we want, we just want to make it happen. But there are just times that circumstances would tell us that, hey, no, it's not possible because of this and that.
In other words, me skills are what allow us to be in control of our own thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Okay, so me skills, it's a skill that would allow us to control our own thoughts, our own actions, our own thinking, of course, thoughts or actions, our decisions, or how we consider things are around. So it's me skills.
Now, to put me skills into a bigger picture perspective, just think about how often these days we hear about everything from mindfulness apps and mindful breathing to the introduction of chief mindfulness officers into corporate culture. Even renowned business visionary Peter Drucker predicted that while the 20th century was the era of business management, the 21st century is going to be the era of self-management. Right, and a good self-management day in the life of a toddler is when no one bites their friends. That's because the ability to resist one's impulses or urges is really dependent on impulse control, which happens to be one of the 3 defining features of what neuroscientists call executive function skills.
So she mentioned that the 20th century is like the era of the business management, but 21st century is an era of self-management. And the way we control our urges or whatever desires we have is actually one of the things that we have to really possess. I mean, it is easier said than done, which is really true, but hopefully class we will be able to have the me skills and not just know about it in theory, but at the same time really apply or show or model how a certain individual is having this me skills.
Research now tells us about these all-important executive function skills is that they develop most rapidly between the ages of 3 and 5.
Okay, so that's all about the me skills.
After me skills come we skills. We skills are people skills, the relationship skills.
Okay, we skills is the second one, and it means people, it's our relationship among people. So that's why it's we skills. It's how we actually deliver ourselves, or how we build a relationship with others. So it's not just about, because living in this world, it's not just about me, it's not just about you, but it's all about us, because we coexist.
Like communication, collaboration, teamwork, active listening, empathy, and perspective taking, all needed to play well with others. We skills are especially valuable in a world where it's become as important to be able to read other people as it is to read. Now, given that I don't ever have to actually convince anybody that these skills are worth developing, Allow me instead to translate. Put your listening ears on, use your words, learn to play nice with others and in the same sandbox. The fact of the matter is that these highly coveted social emotional skills are preschool skills, and they can be developed very early. Toddlers can be taught to understand other people's perspectives. 9-month-olds begin to show signs of empathy, and even very young infants are sensitive emotion detectors, able to sense others' emotions even before they can walk or talk. Now, before moving on, I should point out that it is the combination of me skills and we skills that fit the formal definition of emotional intelligence, described not only as 2 of the hottest words in corporate America, but recognized around the world as absolutely critical to thrive in all aspects of 21st century life.
So Dr. Jana mentioned that if we talk about we skills, it's not just gonna be developed when we're adults, but even younger children, the toddlers, even infants can already start to develop empathy, can already start to develop sort of these we skills, and how you communicate, how you actually relate with other people. And the combination of me skills and we skills is what actually constitutes the emotional intelligence or our EQ. So that's our the emotional quotient. And to be honest, of course, we need to be sympathetic. We need to be empathetic. We also need to show that personality. And a lot of times, are we seeing it from, is everybody showing it? Well, of course, it's not the case, but at least through this speech, we learn about me skills and the we skills. And this time we have to move forward and check on the third key skill.
Next are the why skills, which obviously include asking the question why, but more broadly include exploration, curiosity, inquisitiveness, and asking all sorts of questions to better understand how the world works. Fueled by technology, the information age.
Okay, so always remember why skills, even part of key skills. So it's really okay to be inquisitive. It's okay to be curious. It's okay to ask why, especially on things that you don't know the answers. You need to ask why, because when you ask why, you would be able to understand it, how things are. And when you understand it, of course, it's just so much better because you comprehend it, you know how things are. And a lot of times, many things in this world are just really like weird, or many things are, seem not explained, and you just want to ask why. You just want to seek the answer to the question why. And it's okay to be curious. It's okay to be inquisitive. In fact, innovators, scientists, or even as educators, we have to really ask why, right? Because how could we explain a certain phenomenon if we don't ask why? Let's continue.
Which has now put so many answers right at our collective fingertips that it is no wonder that the ability to ask good questions has become so much more valued than simply knowing the right answer. As Albert Einstein put it, the important thing is to never stop questioning.
Okay, Albert Einstein said, according to Dr. Jana, that the important thing is to never stop questioning. Okay, so asking or never stop asking. Well, asking a question is really okay. And but of course, you have to also see if your questions have sense. So you have to ask a question, because by asking question, you get to open up to things.
Now think about some of the corporate training programs, like the 5 Whys, that train business leaders to better get to the root of a problem by repeatedly asking why. Implemented by some of the top companies in the world, these formal questioning and training techniques ironically leave one fundamental question unanswered. Why should we have to go to such great lengths to train adults to do something that comes so naturally to 2- and 3-year-olds? The answer, I'm afraid, is that we train this skill out of children. While it is natural for young children to question the world around them, Making sure that they continue to see the world as a question mark very much depends on our commitment to encouraging rather than squelching their natural sense of wonder.
Okay, so that's the third skill, key skill, and that is to ask why. Next, fourth.
When I think of will skills, I'm reminded of when my own 3 children first began school and they became members of a club called the Can Do Club, which recognized young students not just for their grades, but for their drive and determination, both key aspects of will skills.
So it's all about your drive, your determination to do things. Because to be honest, class, if you have things in your mind that you want to do, but you have no determination, you have no will to do it, and at the same time you don't put action to do it, of course it will never be done. You will never be getting it done. It will never be finished. So you just really have to do it.
Will is also about grit and perseverance, and it's evident in people with get the job done and stick with it attitudes. At the heart of will is motivation. Now,
so there are people who just want to do things really. So they have that attitude of, just want to get the job done or just want to do it really. So it's a very good attitude. Those goal setter and very career driven also have this will, because if you don't have the will, then you will never find a way. As the saying that Filipinos, we tend to really say no because we don't have the will. But if we have the will, even if how difficult it is, we would always make sure we find a way to achieve the goal that we want, right? No matter how difficult, how challenging it would be, and no matter how far it would be, you would always look for a way because you have the will.
Actually 2 types of motivation. The first,
and of course, will is alongside of will is your motivation.
Extrinsic motivation involves rewards and punishments. While this approach may work in the short run and for relatively simple tasks, the complex challenges of the 21st century are going to demand a lot more from our children. Simply relying on rewards has been shown to all but kill creativity and in the long run actually decrease motivation. Intrinsic or self-motivation is what we're really after, the kind of motivation that comes from within. To foster this kind of self-motivation, we perhaps need to rethink how we parent in the earliest years when even the most routine tasks, brushing teeth and peeing in the potty, are all too often rewarded with sweets and treats rather than with praise and pride.
And then wiggle.
Now, you may not be accustomed to thinking of wiggling as a skill, but the best way to understand wiggle skills is to recognize that physical and intellectual restlessness go hand in hand. Just think about how we...
Okay, I actually like it. Physical and mental intellectual restlessness, mental restlessness. So they go hand in hand because, of course, in fact, if you really work hard, you will be, feeling that. You feel very restless.
Commonly describe successful adults as movers and shakers and go-getters who set stretch goals, spring into action, reach for the stars. They're all about action. If you read the innovation literature, you'll find that innovators are almost always described as physical.
So wiggle skills, it's all about action. Earlier will, it's about your determination, your perseverance that comes along with your motivation. And of course, the best motivation is the intrinsic motivation. But of course, it would be good if you have both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And next to will, we have the wiggle skills. And wiggle, of course, it's about doing the action, don't just putting up a goal there, but after you put a goal or you put it in your board or your notes and you just sit down and you do nothing. So you have to make sure you have an action to get there, to get to that goal. Mindset, because we will be able to really contribute so much to the community or to the world in general, because we became very visionary in a way, and we imagine where it could go, what would happen, years from now or months from now. So this is good.
global survey of over 1,500 CEOs, creativity was identified as the single most important factor for future success.
So being creative, most of the businessmen or business women or the CEOs said that it's like a factor. It's really a great factor. It's a huge factor in order for us to succeed if we wanted to be if we are creative.
Our world clearly rewards those who can imagine the world they want to live in and then create it. Young children excel.
So imagine the world class that you want to live and create it. Like if you want to live years from now, you wanted to become like Elon Musk, who's really rich, then starting from now, you have to start building or creating a kind of life that you wanted to have in the future. If that is something that you have to really possess, you know, like what it is that you really wanted to become. I believe the earlier the time that you know what you really wanted to become is the better, because the earlier you could start building in order to get there. So that's why we really have to ask what if. You have to be also adaptive
At imagining new worlds,
you have
from
to
make-believe and
be
superheroes
creative.
to imaginary friends and fanciful stories. Young children really are, as futurist Peter Diamandis puts it, some of the most imaginative humans around. But it has also been said that the creative adult is the child that survived. In our efforts to teach our children how we see the world, we run the very real risk of convincing them that there's only one right way to do or see things. We must therefore ask ourselves the question raised by developmental psychologist Jean Piaget. Are we forming children capable of only learning that which is already known? Or should we try to develop creative and innovative minds capable of discovery throughout life? I'm here to tell you the answer is the latter. Giving children the best is about maximizing their potential, not their possessions. It's about cultivating their...
Okay, giving children the best, you have to maximize their potential. You have to make sure they can do a lot of things, or they are capable of doing things, not, you know, giving them a lot of things that they could possess, but they have to maximize their potential.
Sense of purpose and passion, not subjecting them to unnecessary pressure. And it's about caring, responsive adults and starting early. We now know that what happens in early childhood does not stay in early childhood. By applying what we now know about all of the key skills and applying it early, me, we, why, will, wiggle, wobble, and what if, I believe that we can achieve success in our shared goal of giving all children access to a world of possibilities. Thank you.
Okay, so the 7 key skills, we have me skills, we skills, we have will skill, me skill, we skill, will skill, we have the wiggle skill, we have the wobble skill, I forgot the other one, but of course, what if, you know, we do have the what if. So these are the things that would make our children succeed, and they would be open to a lot of possibilities. But let's try to check it. So wobble, will, why? Oh, I forgot a why, but yeah, it's part of it. So we have the me, the we, the will, the me, the we, the why, the will, the wiggle, the wobble, and the what if skills. And these are the key skills according to Dr.
Next are the why
Jana,
skills, which obviously
Laura Jana. So I hope you learned from that TED talk, no? And then that's how she delivered it. And then last meeting class, I gave you a sort of issues that I let you copy or take a photo of it. So that's what the activity will be all about. So I wanted you to be able to communicate during our physical meeting next week, communicate about the issues, and then talk about it, cascade about it, communicate to your classmates. So what you guys need to do is that you have to look for details about these 6 issues that I wrote in the board, on the board. And that's what we are going to look into next meeting. So you have to do research, just research and look for details about the issues that I raised. and you have to communicate about each of the issue to your class. So now let's proceed to communication in the 21st century. So always remember, class, that communication is the key to social integration. And what is good about if you know how to communicate is that it would be easier for people to share ideas. So it would be easier for you to share your ideas. You can express your feelings, and you could be able to contribute to fruitful discussions and debates. And language, in most cases, actually, it poses significant barrier, to communication. That's why if we have different languages that we spoke, it's very difficult for us to actually be able to meet halfway, especially if both of you don't know about each other's language. That's why we do have the universal language. And this time, our universal language is, of course, English. And one of the barriers to communication is not just only language, but even the cultures and the communities that we are in. Because the community or the country where we come from could definitely differ in so many ways, like the culture, our, of course, language is given, and of course, our context as well. And oftentimes, we would be thinking that, hey, we wanted to achieve unity and peace. Well, we can only achieve that if we respect each other's differences. But if you're expecting that we have the same beliefs and we would agree on all of the things, like whatever is the belief of person A would also be the belief of person B, then it's not going to be the case. Like we could not really achieve that, because the only key for us to unite and for us to have a harmonious relationship is when we respect each other's differences, because we definitely have a lot of differences. Even the siblings have differences. How much more people coming from different countries and meet in one setting? You expect us to be really agreeing on a lot of things? Well, yeah, but along the way, there would always be differences, and we could only work it out if we communicate and we respect each other's differences, because there are just a lot of barriers, really. So communication, it prevents misunderstandings. And what prevents misunderstanding is only the effective communication, because there are communication that is actually not effective. Like it is only effective, class, once the receiver of the message understands the way the sender wants to send, or the way the sender conveys the message. But if what is being cascaded to the receiver is actually different to what the sender wanted the receiver to understand, then there is communication gap, and you would end up having a conflict. So it gives you a way to share ideas through communication, and it even makes it easier for you to appreciate and, of course, respect the opinions of others. And communication, like when we communicate, there is always exchanges, okay, of ideas or things, what we think of, what our opinions are, we exchange. So there is exchange of discourses and discussion. There is always a discussion. Sometimes people are just like too lazy to discuss things. They just want to drop the issue. And if it is always like that, you end up always dropping the issue, and you just don't want to deal with it. That would accumulate, actually, because the thing is, the other person may feel bad if you keep on dropping a certain issue and don't want to talk about it. And then there is also information. When you communicate, you always make sure there is an information you wanted to send, right? Because like communicating without anything to send, I don't know if that really is communication. And of course, now technology is very much part of communication, because we communicate through technology. We do video calls, we do chat, we have audio calls and the likes, and communication that involves also when you provide advice or piece of advice, and also when we do teamwork. So we always have communication. We always communicate. So communication is a very important skills in the 21st century, actually needed for everybody to succeed. Because if you don't know how to communicate, How would you be able to succeed in life, right? It's difficult. It's difficult. You do have a lot of dreams, but you don't know how to communicate to people you wanted to, you really just wanted to be part of what you envision, or where you want to go. You don't know how to communicate. So that's really a challenge. So communication is very important. And communication is an exchange, obviously, between a sender and a receiver. And here the sender transmits the message and you have a specific intent. What is your intention? Why do you send a message to the receiver? And then the receiver would interpret the message and, of course, respond. And we can only say that the communication is effective, as what I said earlier, if the message is interpreted by the receiver the way the sender wanted it to be or intended it to be. An effective communication otherwise is when the receiver actually misinterprets the message. But the only thing for you to actually have an effective communication is that when you see there is a misinterpretation, you have to correct the receiver, because the problem actually is we have different contexts, especially if it is like a message, a text message. Sometimes, the way we receive it, the way the message is being received could be in a negative way, but actually the sender does not mean it that way. So we really have to do clarification here. And then 5 questions to improve your communication skills, according to Jacob Morgan, who's very famous, very successful as well. So what are the best channels to use to get information across? So you should know that. And you have to ask this question to yourself. Are you communicating in a clear, open, passionate, and humble way? So if you are being clear, you are being open, you're passionate, and you're humble, the way you communicate, it would be effective. How does the way you communicate make those around you feel? I mean, are you making the other person feel uncomfortable or not? Are you being human? Like, are you humanizing the way you communicate? Are you being empathetic? Or are you just being rude? If someone communicated to you in the same way you are communicating to others, what impact would it have? So if someone, again, communicated to you in the same way you are communicating to others, what impact would it have? Now, communication does not only talk about the written and the spoken. We also have nonverbal, but of course, this time we will be talking first about verbal. The verbal is the spoken and the written form, So verbal communication is when we exchange messages by speaking or by writing to our receiver. And for most of us, verbal communication is actually the most common way we stay in touch with other people in our lives. Like we send hello, hi, or other messages. So that's verbal communication. We talk face to face or sometimes on the phone. As I said, we send text messages, we email, we send instant messages, we write blogs, we pass notes to others. We also send cards to communicate to them, to the person. While there is also another way to communicate and to send our message, and that is through nonverbal communication. So the nonverbal communication helps put words into context. Now, this form of communication actually, it includes visual messages that a receiver can see, such as when you smile when you are talking, okay? Or it also includes physical messages, such as a pat on the back when you do like this to the person, that really gives him or her like an assurance, or like a good luck, or a thing saying that, hey, you got it, okay? You got it. You will do it. During a conversation, the tone of your voice and the language you use combine to provide context for the words. And when you write, somehow you lose some of the context, but which can make the communication less effective if we lose the context.
What is nonverbal communication?
Let's watch this.
We communicate with our words, but also with our actions. Communication is more than just what we say to each other. It also includes our facial expressions, gestures, and body language.
So it includes our facial expressions, gestures, our body language, and that's how we are going to communicate. And oftentimes the spoken, when we talk to the person face to face, it would always somehow, many times, would come along with nonverbal communication, right? So let's continue.
They can add to our communication or even change the meaning of what we're saying. To be a good communicator, you need to be aware of nonverbal communication and understand what you're saying with your actions. In this video, we'll go over 3 major types of nonverbal communication. Then we'll talk about how you can use these skills to communicate with someone.
So what are the 3 types? Let's take a look at it.
Facial expressions.
So we start off with facial
You
expression.
probably already use this type of nonverbal communication without even realizing it. Usually, we don't think much about controlling our facial expressions. But facial expressions are important because they show people how you feel about something. If a friend tells you about something sad, you would probably make a serious expression to show that you understand how serious the situation is. If you decided to smile, the other person might think that you're taking their situation lightly or you don't understand. It's confusing when someone's expression doesn't match up to the conversation. Being aware of this type of nonverbal communication can help you communicate better.
So facial expression is very important. Sometimes when we are too serious about things and our facial expression really, shows being very serious, our person we are talking with, we think, oh, this person is really like serious. And if we also smile, like it would be taken like you don't understand it and you just take the issue lightly and all that, like it's not a big deal. So like, see the way you express your face, your facial expressions also matter because it has to match, the what you are saying and of course your facial expression. Otherwise, it's gonna be a misinterpretation or it's gonna be a communication gap or communication won't be effective. The next, gestures.
Many people rely on gestures as a sort of backup for communication. We might use them if we have trouble communicating with someone. If you're ordering ice cream in a busy shop and the cashier can't hear you, you might use your fingers to show them how many scoops of ice cream you want. Some common gestures can also help us communicate, like okay, the peace sign, and thumbs up. But some gestures mean different things in different cultures. If you're communicating with someone you don't know, it's important to think about which gestures you'll use.
Okay, gestures is also important. And the hand gestures, you say peace sign, you say okay sign. So it has a meaning. They have meanings. Next, body language.
Body language is like facial expressions because we often use this type of communication without realizing it. But body language means communicating with your whole body, not just your face.
So body language,
it shows you how open or closed someone is to communicating. If someone's arms are crossed, they're looking away, and they aren't making eye contact, they might not want to talk to you.
No.
But what if they say hello with a handshake or elbow bump, have their arms at their sides, and make eye contact with you? This body language shows that they're much more open to communicating.
Okay, so like our body language should also mean something if we are open to communication or if wanted to have communication with a person or whatnot. So yeah, if you just cross like this and then you look away, that means, come on, I don't want to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Okay, so
mixed messages.
Mixed messages.
Greg is the branch manager at a bank. One day, he walks over to Jalen, a bank teller. Hey Jalen, can you cover Nancy's shift tomorrow? You'd be really helping us out, Greg asks. Jalen crosses his arms, looks away, and says, yeah, I guess. Greg is confused. Jalen says he will work the extra shift, but it doesn't seem like he wants to. Are you sure? Greg asks. It's okay if you can't make it. Jalen turns to Greg and makes eye contact. I'd like to work the extra shift, but I need to do some family stuff tomorrow, he says. Okay, no problem, Greg says. Thanks for clarifying. I can ask someone else to take it instead. At first, Jalen said one thing, but he really meant another. If Greg only listened to his words, he might not have understood the situation. But Greg thought about Jalen's body language and asked questions. That helped him understand what Jalen was saying. Understanding nonverbal communication is a very important part of becoming a good communicator. It can help you understand what other people are saying, and it can be a backup mode of communication if you have trouble. Looking out for these types of communication and using them when you're speaking with others will help you keep becoming a better communicator.
Okay, so it's very important that we look at class the nonverbal communication, body language, facial expressions, and the gestures to interpret things. Like in the example, Greg and Jalen's conversation, like if Greg only listens to what Jalen said, probably he would say, okay, then I will give you, you will have the extra shift. But the body language says otherwise. So that makes Greg clarify. So what you really, could you take it or not? And then he said, well, I would love to, but I have some family stuff that I would also love to do. So that already communicates that, come on, probably I wanted to be with the family, or I wanted to do the family stuff. So of course, Greg understood that. So that is an effective communication. And active listening is also a very good point, and this is an important part of effective communication too. When you're an active listener, you pay attention to the speaker, and you also make sure you hear and understand the message. Because when you are an active listener, it's actually a sign of respect that you're interested to what the person is saying. And it shows you are willing to communicate and that you care about the speaker and the message, if you are an active listener. Now,
active listening, the act of fully hearing and comprehending the meaning of what someone else is saying. Avoid getting distracted by your own thoughts. Focus on the speaker and topic instead. Try not to interrupt the other person. Let them finish and then respond. Use door openers. These are phrases that show you're interested and keep the other person talking. Show that you're listening with body language. If appropriate, take notes during important conversations. Paraphrase what others have said to make sure you're both on the same page.
Okay, so active listening. You have to make sure you listen to what a person is saying, because it shows respect, and you would be able to really digest also what the message is. And then use these skills to be an active listener. Number one, you show interest using eye contact and positive nonverbal messages. Second, let the other person finish speaking before actually you respond. Don't cut him or her. Ignore distractions such as cell phones and other people, so you have to concentrate. And then set your predetermined opinions and emotions aside. Like sometimes you already have an opinion about it. You just have to listen and set it aside. And then the next is repeat a message that you hear out loud, just to make sure you receive it correctly for clarification. And then the communication process, you can communicate effectively, class, by using a 6-step process. Number one is you have to be clear. So be clear on what you wanted to say. Be personal. Be positive, not being negative. Get to the point and use active listening for you to succeed in the communication. And at the same time, think before you respond to that person. So in the 21st century, communication skills, they are really just essential for the successful future individual. So in today's competitive world, communication skills in business are the most sought after of an educated person. So here are 10 effective principles of communication 21st century. So what are these? Let's try to take a look at it. Number one, or first, is openness. So keep an open mind when communicating with your team to see things from their point of view. It will make it easier to explain what you want from them. So you have to be open. Okay, next is lead by example. You should be the model. Instead of telling someone what you want them to do, show them by setting an example. It makes work simpler for a listener. And then personalization is getting to know your team member on a more personal level, making it a point to say hello in passing can go a long way in getting your team behind your vision. You have to have it at a personal level too, because it would be very natural. And then the next is prioritize. So a strong leader knows the time is valuable. So communicate exactly what you want from your team by stating the goal of the task. And we have number 5, avoid monologue. So actually, you should not talk to your team, but you have to talk with them. Listen to them as well. So people are more receptive to a dialogue type of communication than if they feel they are being commanded to do something without any chance for their input. So you should be creating a dialogue type of environment. And then the next is clarity. So effective leadership communication is clear and simple. You lose effectivity if you mess up your sentences. Then we have 7, which is trust. Trust is more important factor in communication. If any person don't respect you, they actually won't listen to you. Well, as simple as that. And critique. So feedback is one of the most valuable things you can give to any person. The key here is to give praise when it's true and give constructive criticism where it's applicable, because we always grow from constructive criticism. And the next is listen. You have to listen. Communication is actually a two-way street. You have to be a good listener before you can start talking. Listen to understand, and don't listen to just reply. You understand a person, you understand the person you're communicating with. And then number 10, you have to inspire. So it's the number 1 principle of effective leadership communication is the ability to inspire those around you. Inspire greatness today for the success of tomorrow. Okay, so this is actually the last topic for the communication skills. So I hope class it's clear. Well, if it's not clear, then you can formulate your questions and ask it during our face-to-face meeting next week. Now we will have an activity, and then your task is just to look for, you have to look for details about the issues that I wrote on the board, because that's the activity that we are going, or you guys will be doing next meeting. Well, I will still be posting another video lecture that you have to watch for this week, and that will be the digital skills. So I hope you learn a thing or two from this video lecture. I will see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.